Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for another video. I'm your host Sheena Loves Stories, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read from the last video I put out, which only went until September. And so for October, November, December, and we're just going to go through the end of the year. I may finish one book, but I highly doubt it. Welcome in everybody. It has been a hot minute. Holiday season is over for me at work, so hopefully be getting out a lot more videos, maybe a little bit more consistent. I don't know. We're going to play some games, so if you want to see my story-driven games, that's Wednesday, and Going to do a whole schedule, all of that stuff, all in my Discord. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. So the first book we're going to talk about today is Dracula the Undead. This is the canonical continuation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. This was written by Dacer Stoker, an actual descendant of Bram Stoker. I read this physically, and it's 424 pages, and it was released back in 2009. I finished this one October 3rd. I used to really like this book. I bought it because it was the continuation of Bram Stoker's novel, and this follows Mina and Jonathan, and they have a son named Quincy, and it follows them in their current-ish times. It's been about 30 years, I want to say, after the events on the first book, and it's just them dealing with the consequences of what happened. We have other things that are introduced into it. I gave this a 2.25 stars. Like I said, I used to love this book. As soon as it came out, I bought it, and I've read it at least like once a year. This year it hits different, and reading it and looking more into the plot of it, I'm just like, I'm a little sick of the way that this is being portrayed. I think that reading this after reading Dracula in Love earlier this year, I'm just kind of like, I want my villains to be villains. I think that's just what it goes back to. I want my villains to be villains, and I'm kind of sick that my villains are no longer villains, and it takes away from the story. But I rated that a 2.25, and I'm not going to go into the book of it. It's a pretty good read. It's fast paced. It doesn't do so much the journal entries that the first book did a lot. It's a lot of different POVs. It's an interesting addition to the series, and like I said, it hit different this year, and I think I'm just sick of certain things. Next year when I read it, I may give it 4 or 5 stars. I don't know, but this year, right now, in the current moment, it's a 2.25. And then the second book I read in October was The First Lie Wins. This is written by Ashley Elston, and I read this through an audiobook, and it was about 9 hours and 16 minutes long. And I got this through my library. This was supposed to be like an easily digestible mystery. Like, it's not something that's supposed to be really like hard to read or anything. It's supposed to be something that you jump in and you just kind of go. And the description reads, Evie Porter has everything a nice Southern girl could want. A perfect doting boyfriend, a house with a white picket fence, and a garden, and a fancy group of friends. The only catch is Evie Porter doesn't exist. So I wanted to read something more thrillery and kind of espionage-y, and I wanted to read something like that. And I kind of went through the library app looking for that type of thing specifically. This caught my eye. It's called, The First Lie Wins. Going through and reading it, I'm just like, wow, this is, again, the story did not catch me. And the way that it was, there was no villain, actually. There was a bunch of bad people in it, but there were no villains. There was no big bad thing. I think that's what I'm missing, is I want a plot story that has that big bad, and like there's an actual conflict. This one was very odd. It was very odd, and I didn't care for the characters, and by the seventh hour, I don't want to say hate listening to it, but I was like, I want to see them not get the things they want. I know what they're pushing for. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. If I see it, I'm going to be annoyed and upset. And I saw it, and it happened, and it went very predictably. There was only two parts in this story that I was like, oh, that's a twist. I didn't expect that. But the main plot points and everything still went the way that I thought it was going to go at the very beginning of the book. I even remember calling my husband, or when my husband called at the beginning, like first 2 hours of this book, I gave him this is where the story is going to go. And it went there. There was some minor twist in there that I liked, and that was about it. But it was a very easy read. It was a very... I think that people will like it a lot more than I did. I couldn't get into it. I didn't like the characters, and I don't like being told that somebody is super smart and super awesome and super great at everything they do without being shown it. I think that's also a big part of why I didn't like this book. It was just like, she's super smart. She's super beautiful. She's super great at this thing that she's doing. And I'm like, cool. And then a chapter later, or even in the same chapter, she's doing stupid stuff, and I'm like, why would you do that? That's very dumb. Why would you act that way? Like the whole part of this chapter of the book is like, you had to be super tough and strong, and you had to use your brains to get through situations and all of this stuff. I'm like, why is it now that you're being super emotional and just running off of emotion? But then later on, we're being told, oh no, she was super smart, put all of these things into place before. I'm like, really? I didn't see that. At this point, I can chalk up a lot of what happened, like how she got out of situations and a lot of things, just to dumb luck. That's how it's presented, and I didn't like it. So I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. Not my favorite. It's not my favorite. I'm just like, oh, I really wanted to like it. And the third book that we read was The Angel of Indian Lake. This was the third book in the Indian Lake trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones. I have the first 2 books on my shelf over there, and I read them earlier. The first one is My Heart is a Chainsaw. The second one is Don't Fear the Reaper. Loved the names, loved the idea. This is focusing on a girl who is obsessed with horror movies. In the first book, she is in high school. The first book is after she's in high school. The second book is when she's an adult. And this one is further off into the adult after, obviously, the things that happened in the first 2 books. I liked how the lore kept building, but at the same time, it felt like there were more and more things being thrown into the lore that didn't mesh well. It felt very, very like Spirit of Halloween. Like, you just get a bunch of stuff that are Halloween and horror themed, and you smush them together. And there's a lot of references to horror movies and how they put in there, but I'm like, I've seen a lot of these horror movies, and you're categorizing them weird. The blurb says this, but if you watch the movie, it goes into this kind of vibes off of it. And I was like, okay, great horror writer. I really like a lot of Stephen Graham Jones books. I think it was because the first one lost me a little bit with an explanation on how or why the main character Jade is the way she is, and I took offense to it. Because I am also obsessed with horror movies, and I do have a lot of the similar fascinations, especially as a teenager, as this girl. I did not have the trauma that she has, and I don't like how it was. Everything that she does goes back to this trauma. And I was like, okay, that's annoying. And as it was crescendoing in this book, it was becoming really good. They were pulling all of the lore into it, and they were mushing it in a weird way that it was like a storm where the wind was so bad that you couldn't look at it, but you can kind of squint and see things, and you can see all of this stuff in it. And I was like, okay, this is getting really good. And then he introduced another story thing towards the end, and I was like, okay, hold up. You're telling me this whole time this has been going on. And not only this whole time, but it goes back generations. That's what you're telling me. Okay, okay, you know what? This could make a lot of sense. This could make a lot of sense. If I'm using my brain and connecting plot points and things from the previous two books, this could make sense. This could work. This could work. And nothing happened with it. And I think that was I put it down because I was just like, I'm annoyed with this right now, and I had to come back to it a couple of days later because I was like, you had this whole thing that could have tied everything together. In my head, canonically, it's tied together. I can make it work in my noggin. On page, it does not, and I don't like that because I shouldn't be the one trying to make it make sense. And then I don't like, especially with the way that the characters grew up, the ending part of it doesn't make sense. It's like he was setting up some more trilogy books and then it was like, oh no, this has to be 3 books. Okay, well, I'm just going to kind of cut off these plot points and then smush this together and then there we go. I kept waiting for more story and it didn't happen with a lot of the things on it, and I was disappointed in it. And it was not my favorite one of the trilogy. I really like the first one except for the little last bit where it tells you a lot of why she is the way she is, because again, I take offense to that. I take personal offense to that because I'm like, first of all, how dare you? And the second book, I think, is my favorite one out of the trilogy just because it's in this weird transitionary area where all of the mystery, all of the distrust and everything makes sense. And the way that the town came together in the way that it did makes sense after the first things, and there's money involved. And I grew up in a poor town on a reservation. I understand a lot of how these things could happen. And so the second book, I think I really liked. Again, I liked the first one except for the last little bit, and then the second one was good. This one, it had good parts in it, but I wasn't enthused by the end of it. And that's sad because I really like Stephen Graham Jones. But those are the 3 books that I read in October. And the first book that I read in November was The Serial Murders, a culinary mystery. I've been trying this year to read as much as I can off of my physical bookshelf. I have over 300 novels. I counted them. That's not including textbooks, which I have a random amount of, strategy guides for video games because we play a lot of video games in this family, and books like that. Like, that's not included. Like 300 novels. I counted them last year, and so last year I started on this journey, and I'm going through it again this year. I'm trying to read as much as my physical library as I can to see if I actually want the books. I have a lot of books that I got at a discount at a library, or they were in like a little surprise kit type of thing, or I got them from thrift stores or secondhand bookshops, things that just caught my eye at some other points in time. So I'm trying to see if I want to keep these books or if I want to rehome them. And so this was one of those books. I've had this on my shelf forever days. This was written or published back in 1993. It's 335 pages, and I didn't think I'd like it. I started reading this book, I think, in September. It follows a woman named Goldie. She is apparently, this is a series following her, where she just falls into murder. She owns her own catering company and business in Colorado, in a small town in Colorado that's a suburb of Denver. And this is the 3rd book in the series, so there's a lot of probably references that I didn't catch because I didn't read the first 2. But she runs a culinary business. She has an abusive ex-husband that she shares custody of their son with. Their son is in middle school, and she's just trying to do the best she can because she's a single mom now, having to deal with all of these things. And in the previous book, she apparently took in not a runaway, but a kid who has nobody else. So she's also taking care of him. He's living in her house. He's a senior this year. She is running an event at the headmaster of this private school that her son is going to because she was super happy about it. The judge ordered that her ex-husband, who's a rich doctor, has to pay for his school. So she's super ecstatic about it. She's doing this event, and then one of the kids ends up murdered. And she just gets kind of falls into this. She doesn't want to be like in the book. She doesn't want to be like a detective. She doesn't. True crime's not her bag. She's like, I just want to be at home. I just want to have a happy life and cook my food and watch my son grow up. That's all she wants to do. And there is a detective that she knows from the previous books, and they're in an relationship, kind of like they're kind of there. He flirts with her all the time and he takes care of her, but she's like, I just got done with this terrible divorce. I don't want to be in a relationship, but he's a good guy. And she's like, but he's really cute and I really like him, but I shouldn't be, but maybe. And it's this, it kind of goes off on their relationship was adorable. Absolutely adorable. I wasn't interested in a lot of the things that were happening at the beginning part of the book. That's why it took me so long. But once I got to like halfway, I did not want to put it down because I was just like, this is so cute. This is so cute. And then as the story goes, there's more things that are happening. There's more incidents that are going on, and they introduce people that could be doing all of these things. And you're like, at the end, I didn't know who did it. I was surprised, and then I was like, really, that's the reason? And then I was like, I can understand it, because they explained the reasoning after it, and that was pretty great. And I just ended up enjoying it a lot more than I did. It was a lot different from a lot of the more current mystery novels that I read. I love mystery novels. I love whodunits. I love murder mystery novels. I love thrillers. I love horror novels. Like, I love all of that kind of stuff. And to read something that's back in the 90s and it just kind of follows a plot structure that used to be normal. And now with a lot of mystery novels, you get a lot of these characters being interested in true crime, and there's a lot of more of that prevalent in the culture. Here it's not. It's really not. And she's just like, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to deal with any of this. And she just gets sucked into it. And by the end of it, I was like, Goldie, no. Somebody help her. Somebody say, where's the detective? Why is he not swooping in and saving her? He didn't. She does a lot of stuff, but it's very clear that she's like, I don't want to be the one to have to do this. But she gets really sucked into it when trying to save her family and to protect her community and everything. And it's very interesting. It is a very interesting read. I think I'm going to keep it. I think I'm going to keep this one. And I rated this a 3.25 out of 5. And that, what is it? I started to enjoy it. It started off really low on what I was enjoying it, but once that like middle kicked in, I was sucked into it. I was giggling, and I was like, this is great. I'm enjoying this. This is such an enjoyable ride. The second book that I read in November was Ritual by David Pinner. And I read this digitally, and it is 216 pages. And this was first published back in 1967. And this was the inspiration for The Wicker Man. Wow, I don't know why I could not remember The Wicker Man. And I finally recently watched the Wicker Man version with Nicolas Cage into it. I've been waiting for that forever to come on streaming so I could watch it. It was not, so finally we just bought it digitally through, I think, Amazon Prime. Finally watched it. Love the movie. Nicolas Cage is unhinged in just this great way. I love Nicolas Cage. He's one of my favorite actors. So I did not know that those movies were based on a book, and let alone a series of books, because there's more than one. So obviously I had to read it. And I read this one. My husband got me Kindle Unlimited, and this was free on Kindle Unlimited. So I read it, and it is so different from what I was expecting from the movie. Like the movies and things, it doesn't happen on an island, which I was just like, what? I mean, I guess technically, it's the UK. And it is, I don't know how to phrase this. It is very dated, I guess, in how it explains a lot of things and how the characters interact with each other. But it's vastly different. It has a lot of the similar beats to it as the movie does, and it's very interesting. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it if you like the movie. Like I said, it's different from the movie. It has a lot of the similar beats of the movie, but it's different enough that I could not put it down. I could not. I'm like, this is very interesting, and I'm really excited to read the next one. I forget what it's called. I have it downloaded on my tablet, but it's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's this detective who has a skin condition, also has like an eye condition. I was thinking like, is he like have albinoism? Like that's kind of what it sounded like. But he all he does is go around the UK and investigate cases like this, in cases that include cults and the occult and stuff like that. And it was like, whoa, tell me more about that. I thought it was going to be a series surrounding him. It is not. The ending, I was like, hold up, what? And it reminded me again of a time before all of these things were just tropes and expected in a book. And I really wasn't expecting it in this book. I thought because this was a series, it was going to continue to follow this specific character. Is not. It's following completely different people in completely different situations, and I'm kind of excited for that. Like I said, it's dated. You may want to check trigger warnings. If you have anything trigger warning-ish you need to be warned about, I would definitely check that out. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. It really surprised me. I enjoyed it, and I was very fascinated by the whole structure of the story with it, and I'm really surprised. And I read it and I watched The Wicker Man, and it's pretty great. The third book I read in November was The Eyes Are the Best Part, and this is by Monica Kim. I read this digitally. It's 277 pages, and this is a reread for me. I first read this last year through the audiobook, which was voiced very well. Very well. And reading it digitally, like reading the actual words on the page, it's just, I like it even more. This is labeled as a feminist psychological horror about making of a female serial killer from a Korean American perspective. What caught me about this was I have a weird fascination with eyes anyways, and I've always had this going all the way back to when I was a teenager. I have this weird fascination with eyes. I know way more about eyeballs than most people probably want to know. And so the eyes are the best part. You got me with the eyeballs already. And the what is it called? Cover of it with the chopsticks through it. I want this book physically because I like it so much. And so you got me with that part. It's a horror novel. You got me with that part. Serial killers. You got me with that part. And last year I read this right after I read Fetish, which is also about the fetishization of Asian women. And that one was a thriller. I don't want to say it was a horror. It was a thriller, but it was funny. And that one was also really good. I'll put it somewhere on the screen, hopefully. And read them back to back if you can. Like it hit harder if you read The Eyes Are the Best Part after reading Fetish. And there's a lot of things in there that I was just like, the way that the story all weaves together, because you're following this girl who's just starting college, and she is a first generation Korean American, and she has issues. She has issues. The father just recently abandoned the family. Her mom is spiraling. Her and her sister are just kind of there. They don't really know what to do, and she's just trying to navigate life while slowly just like falling into this whole psychosis. And the people that are surrounding her are no help. No help. I do like the portrayal of this, I don't want to say love interest, but the guy in here And I watched a video essay on performative males, and I'm like, there it is. And I've seen a lot of men who are like that, especially being a minority. When I was single, the way that he is portrayed in it, I'm just like, I knew men like this. And I know, I'm like, yes, this should be more prevalent because these are all red flags. These are all things that, no. like, these are things that you should be, like, no, you should not be envious of this in any way, shape, or form. And it goes full circle on why it's a terrible thing around it. I enjoyed the book. I rated this a 4.5 out of 5, and I really enjoy it. I'm going to buy it physically. I like it. The fourth book, I'm pretty sure. The next book that we read in November was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I got this physically. It is 203 pages. It's a little special edition. I'll put the cover on the screen, and it's like that big. Like, it just fits in my little hands. And I like this. I read Frankenstein every year, and I started this in October, and I didn't finish it until November just because I was doing a lot of other things. And I love it. It's one of my favorite books, and this one did get a 5-star for me. It always gets a 5-star. It's one of my favorite stories ever. And I was really hyped to read this again and then watch the movie on Netflix. And I did watch the movie on Netflix, and I have nothing good to say about the story in the movie on Netflix. But the book gets a 5-star read. If you guys want to read the actual story, it is free just about, and you can get it free through your library. You get it free through the Gutenberg Project. You get it the free audiobook version and a dramatized version on YouTube. Listen to the original story. It's really good. And the next book that we read in November was a weird book that I had on my tablet. I have a bunch of digital books that I gathered from different places, and I haven't read all of them. I have like 200 of them on my tablet. Not all of them that I own physically or have read before. Just I have a chunk of them. Like, I bought collections, acquired them, and this is Fat Vampire, a never coming of age story written by Adam Rex. I read this digitally. It was 337 pages, and this was an odd read. It was just funny. It follows a teenage boy who was made a vampire, and he's still trying to go to school, trying to go to high school and everything. And we find out through the story of how he was made into a vampire and why he's a little salty about it, and the whole scheme of things. There's like a whole little society of vampires in this area. It's like in I want to say Idaho. It follows him, and then it follows a girl from India, and she has the Google, which is an actual condition in this universe where you get sucked in so hard online that it starts being an actual psychosis, and it's called the Google. And so she left India and went to a what are they called? Like a foreign exchange student program. So she went to this town in Idaho where this vampire is living, and this vampire is short, and he is overweight, and he was made a vampire, so now he's stuck in that short, overweight teenager type of body for like ever. And he starts to fall into like with this girl who is staying with a family in this neighborhood, and the daughter of the two adults that she's staying with is full on like goth, and she's funny to listen to. It's a young adult fantasy novel, and I didn't think I'd like it when I started reading it. I usually don't read YA, but it was funny. I really enjoyed it. It was funny, and it made you feel all kinds of ways about this kid and his whole situation, and how it is affecting his whole friend group, his whole family, and even the vampire society, which he is now a part of. And they don't really want him there because they have an issue with aesthetics. So so it's him interacting with all of this and trying to come to terms with what had happened to him and how he is navigating that for going forward. And it was really funny, and like I said, you go on a whole roller coaster of emotions with how you're relating to this kid. Like, there were times where I was like, I am fully on this kid's side, and then there was other times where I'm like, somebody needs to drive a stake through this kid. I swear there's something wrong. I don't like him. He's annoying. And the same goes with the girl. Like, they're teenagers. They were really well written teenagers. And it was a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. And I rated this a 3.75 out of 5. And the next book that I read in November was The Bleeding Woods. This is written by Brittany Amara. It was 267 pages, and I read this digitally on my tablet. This was an interesting book. I first picked this book to read because on Kindle Unlimited, through the Kindle app, it lets you, this is a whole new thing that I didn't know was a thing, because I usually don't read on through the Kindle app as much, and I don't really read digitally as much, or I'm trying to read more physically, so I kind of push that to the back burner. But with the Kindle Unlimited, I don't know if it does it without it. You can download a book and read it digitally, and then also have the audiobook version as well. So I was able to have the physical, the actual digital version of it, and then start the audiobook, and it would just start at the top of the page and just continue to go. So it was very interesting. The audiobook was done very well. The narration did not bother me. I think it fit really well. It follows a girl, Clara Lovecraft. It follows Clara Lovecraft. This is a cosmic horror adjacent type of inspiration. The author does talk about how she enjoyed Lovecraft and the cosmic horror things in there, but Clara has a problem. She caused an accident with her parents when she was kids. Her and her sister are not getting along. They haven't gone along since the accident with their parents. And then there's this like knight in shining armor that's in between them, that's friends with her sister, who is a really caricature-y version of somebody that you would think as a strong, independent woman. And Clara, who is very meek, very shy, very disconnected, and needs a lot of care. And so he's in between. He's friends with the sister, also friends with her, and he likes Clara, and they are trying to... I don't know what's giving it away. They're going to the woods to go camping. Not as something any of them would actually be like, oh, this is what we should do. And at the end, we find out, like, in the beginning, we find out a little bit why each of them have their own reasons of why they want this to happen. Towards the end, you see, like, oh, it was all a web of deceitful lies. And I thought this book was going a bunch of different ways. I thought that it was more of a female serial killer type thing. Like, again, it has the eyes in the flowers, and I was like, you got me with the eyeballs. That's why I was like, I'm picking this one. And it just took me a whole bunch of different ways. You have the cosmic horror part of it. It tries to do some science-y parts into it with... I don't know what's there's just science-y parts to it, and then there's a military aspect to it, and there's all of this stuff pushed into this 267 pages, and there is a romance that's happening throughout a lot of the book between Clara and something else. And I had a lot of emotions going through this book. There was a lot of parts where I was like, this is stupid. I don't like this. I don't like that this character is doing this. I don't care for it. I don't like it. But I was like, I have to finish reading it because I have to know what's going to happen. And there was a lot of parts where I was just like, oh, that's so cute. And then there's a lot of the parts where I was just like, this is just, I don't even know what to think. It took me out of what I was expecting a lot from it. Because I would, again, tell my husband, I think this is what's going to happen to it. And he would be like, okay. It's just the way that, my husband does, where he's like, all right, I'm taking this all in. It's adorable. And even though I was just ranting at him. And then I'd come back the next day or an hour later and be like, all right, so it didn't do that. It did all of this instead. Now I'm interested into it. And then I'd get interested into it. And then I come back to him like an hour or the next day and be like, all right, I'm not interested in it anymore because this is stupid. And a lot of the things that I thought were really stupid was because I was a military police officer in the military for a bunch of years. And so it's the same thing that bothered me in this newest season with Stranger Things, which I was just, you saw the MPs around and the way that they were acting and doing things and stuff. I'm like, that's not accurate at all. I don't like that. It's why I don't watch military movies, a lot of them. But it was interesting. Like I said, roller coaster of emotions on how I felt about it. In the end, I gave it a 2.5. It got that much because it did keep me interested enough to keep reading it. But the characters were just very caricature-y. And I was like, okay, they have one personality, and that's it. That's it. No other personalities. Okay, I see what we're doing here. That took it down a lot. That took it down so much because I don't want like 1D, 2D characters. I want a full-fledged person. So that's what took it down a lot. 2.5 out of 5. It wasn't terrible. It was just not good. And the characters were terrible. Okay, it was a little terrible. But it was there. It was intriguing. And this is a newer author. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to follow this author on Amazon and see what else they come out with. This is, I think, her horror debut. And so there's a lot of times where I'm just like, hopefully the character thing will evolve. And I read 2 books so far in December. I don't have a rating for them yet. Hopefully I will do a little quick calculation because I didn't write them in my reading journal yet because I only went up to November because December was crazy. The first one was The Kill Clause. The Kill Clause is a short novella, I guess. It's 70 pages. I read this digitally through the Kindle app, and it's something that I heard a lot about when I listened to the booktuber people who are like, this is what you should read in this season type of stuff. This is always on their list for the people that I follow, most of them. And so I read it. It is a short story, and it was interesting. It reminded me of, what was that other book? The First Lie Wins. It reminded me a lot of The First Lie Wins, and to the point where I was comparing them a lot and just kind of talking at the book about what happened in The First Lie Wins. I'm like, if you do this, that's it. I'm turning this off. I don't care if it's 70 pages. That's it. I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to read it. This is stupid. But it wasn't that bad. It was, for a short story, it was an interesting premise from it. I don't think I would read anything in this universe with these characters in a longer form. The only thing that really, like I said, if The First Lie Wins, kind of just, it irks me so much with how the plot was non-plot worthy. And this one did a lot better with it, but at the same time, I was like, it's the same story. It's the same story. And let me just check to see if, no, different completely authors. It was the same story, but Christmas time. And a shortened, condensed version, which I appreciated. And the last book that I read for December is All Systems Red, the first in the Murderbot Diaries. I read this digitally through the Kindle app, and it's 156 pages, and I saw the show. We got Apple TV Plus for a while, so I actually watched the show, and I liked the show, and it made me laugh a lot. And so I decided I was going to start reading the books. I read the first one, and it is exactly what I expected it to be. It is funny. It is sci-fi. It's a sci-fi adventure. If you've seen the show or seen any trailers for the show, it kind of has that vibe throughout the whole book in a more condensed version. And I really enjoyed it. It was very well written, especially for a shorter story, to have as much information that it did into it. So I'm going to read more of those because I liked them. Not going to be at the top of my list, but when I need a nice little read for just just something actiony and funny. I think that's gonna be like my go-to series to go through reading. And that's what I read so far. The one that I may finish by tomorrow, because today is the 30th at the time of filming this. It could be one of two books. I'm going to tell you what both of them are. One of them is Seed by, I can't even read this, Anya Alborn. And I'm listening and reading this through the Kindle app. As an audiobook, it is 6 hours and 10 minutes. As an actual book, is 241 pages. And it is very interesting. I didn't know what to expect from it. You see the cover and I'm like, okay, it has something to do like supernaturally. And this is following a family. And this family, the father of this family, his name is Jack Winter. And Jack was originally from Georgia and then went to Louisiana, and he's a musician. He ends up getting married and he has 2 little girls, and he's just trying to have this like regular family, and nobody knows what happened to him. Everybody knows he was a runaway and that the early years of his life were bad. They don't know why. He won't tell them why, and he's very evasive about it. And one night they are driving down the road and they get into an accident. And from this accident, their car is totaled. Everybody in there is physically fine, but we find out that Jack has a secret that he has been hiding since he was a little kid, like 10 years old. And it is now affecting his family, especially his youngest daughter, who is about 5. I think she's 5 or 6 years old. So it's them interacting with this whole thing. And I'm really enjoying it so far. It is really interesting. It is looking at, I wonder if it tells you, hang on. It does not. It does not tell you, so I'm not going to say anything about it. I don't want to ruin it because so far it's a very interesting read. I really enjoyed the narration when I'm listening to it on a narrator, because they do a lot of... It's a narrator without an accent who does Southern accents and then also other accents that are different, and you can hear the difference between the Southern accents. My husband's from North Carolina, so when we travel through the South, I didn't know that there was different accents between Southern states. Apparently there is. It's a big difference. There's videos on it, and and now I can tell the differences, and he does really well. The narrator does really well with it, and it's just one narrator, and it's an interesting take on a lot of things that have become very common, especially in like the kind of horror movies I watch, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting so far. I really enjoy it, and I may finish that one today or tomorrow. If I don't finish that one, I will be finishing this one, which is Suspicion of Madness. This is written by Barbara Parker. It is a Gail Connor and Anthony Quintana book. I guess it's a number 7 in the series. This is the only one I've read, or I have read. This is one of those books that I've had in my little library forever. I got it when I was in high school. Wow, so long ago. I got it when I was in high school, when you used to order books through magazines. And yeah, I got this book then, as well as a bunch of other of the mystery books that I have. This is my first time reading this one. This one follows Gail and Anthony Quintana. They're engaged, and they're going to the Southern Keys to help out with a case. Well, Anthony got hired for a case down in this Florida Key West, one of the little islands area. There's a resort there. He got hired by a rich couple who are having an issue with their son, who confessed to murder. And he's trying to sort it out really quickly. He convinces Gail to go with him, and just was like, let's just take a weekend. And so she takes her work with her, and she goes. And they are finding out it is not a simple case of, oh no, this was something that was different. He did do it. He didn't do it. It is very convoluted. And by the time that I'm getting set up into one thing, it switches. And I'm focused on something completely different. I'm like, oh, well, could have been this person. It's a whodunit murder mystery novel with this couple in the middle, and they're trying to help out this 18, 19-year-old kid who confessed to murder and tried to unalive himself and was saved, and now he is stuck with this, and they're trying to figure out how to best help him as lawyers. And it's very interesting. The first part of it, like I said, it was slow build up, and then once I have a firm grasp on this character, it switches to a different character. So it's building up a lot of character work, and I really enjoy that. And I have no idea who has done it. I'm a little over halfway through the book, and it's just fascinating. And it's so far really good. Hopefully it will not disappoint me, but those are one of the two. I will finish one of those two books between today and tomorrow. That's my goal, is to finish one more of these. So that's about it. I don't know how long this video is. Hopefully it's under an hour. Let's go editing, Sheena. Yay. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, afternoon, whatever it is where you are. The holiday season is the busiest season for me at work. That's over with. Hopefully now I can have more consistent content coming out. So if you have anything you want me to specifically review, go over, let me know. What are you guys reading? What have you read this, I don't want to call it winter because it hasn't really, it's not winter outside, but this fall/winter hallucination. I hope you guys are reading some really good stuff. There's a lot of good books out there, and even if it's just some random thing you're picking up just to be like, I don't like that for this reason, I hope that you guys are finding new stuff to read. Don't forget to do all of the YouTube things. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll hopefully talk to you guys really soon. Bye.